I'm gonna tell you something I've never told anyone. 30 years ago, my friends and I spent the night at a cabin. We found the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. Certain passages were recited. It awoke something in the woods. Something evil. I was the only one to escape. But now, the evil has found me.
Hello and welcome to the Ash vs. Evil Dead podcast. This is a podcast in which we focus on Ash vs. the Evil Dead. Of course, Ash vs. the Evil Dead is based in the lore of the Evil Dead franchise, and it currently airs on Starz. I think it's just wrapping up at the time that we're recording this, or it will be very soon. Joining me tonight, as always, is the host of the X-Files podcast and the co-host of the Ash vs. Evil Dead podcast, and that is Kyle. What's up, buddy?
What is up, JP? How you doing?
I'm doing great. This is a great time to be podcasting. It is currently winter here in Southwest PA, and it's still not winter here in Southwest PA, if you know what I mean. It's like nice outside. It's crazy.
It's the same here. It's like ridiculously like it's actually warm. Like I can go outside right now without a jacket on, and it feels fine. Like it's kind of crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that, man. I'm not used to it. Usually we get hit pretty hard here early in the winter time, but I'm kind of enjoying a little change of pace this year. Besides that, though, man, not much. We're going to be getting into episode number 4 of Ash vs. the Evil Dead, and of course, a few different places where you guys can find us. One is Horrorphile. We have that iTunes feed set up now, so you guys can subscribe to us on iTunes, and we will be covering the rest of this series, taking the mid-season or the end season break and coming back next year when the show's brought back for a second season. But in between then, we will do the Evil Dead franchise throughout the summer months, and if you want to stay in tune for that, definitely subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Give us a rating, review, or something. Horrorphilia.com. Check us out there. 22shotsandmoodsinhorror.com. Kyle's YouTube channel, which is the Horrorphile. Mine, which is DoubleShotJ. Just to get all of that type of little housekeeping out of the way, just to let you guys know what's going on. I don't think we had the iTunes link in the last episode, but it will be there now. So, Kyle, episode number 4.
Yes, we are on episode 4, which is titled Brujo. It is directed by David Franzi, and it was written by James E. Egan. And like I said, this is the 4th episode in the series. We have already covered the last 3, and I think James E. Egan, from what I remember, let me just double check here. No, he actually hasn't written one of these episodes yet. So, Sam Raimi did, Dominic Dierkes, Sean Clements, and now we got James E. Egan. And like I said, it's directed by David Frazee, who doesn't look like he's done much.
He was a cinematographer, and he is a director, but he hasn't done that much. He doesn't have a Wikipedia, page besides just a little bit, but it does look like he's done some TV shows, Orphan Black, Ash vs. Evil Dead, of course. Nothing that
probably
really
an
stands out to
up-and-coming
me.
Director, more than likely.
Yeah, but the writer actually wrote some of the Avatar: The Last Airbender episodes, which I hear people really like, and he did a lot of Saturday Night Live as a writer. So,
interesting. He's probably the one that comes up with all the jokes and stuff in this show.
Yeah,
or this episode. So, do you want to get into the viewership, dude? I know
yeah.
you were talking about that
first,
before.
this aired November 21st, 2015. So pretty much exactly a month from when a month before we're recording right now, which is, we're pretty much a little behind on the TV show, to say the least. And you actually will hear this even later than that. So the viewership for this episode, as you remember last episode, Books from Beyond actually had a bit of a spike from the episode before that, which was Bait, which had a drop from the premiere. What's super interesting now is this actually peaked again. So it goes up even from last time, and it actually surpasses that of the premiere episode. So the premiere had 437,000 viewers. This one has 448,000 viewers. So it actually went up. This is the highest episode thus far.
Wow, that's actually kind of crazy, like, to think about, to be honest with you, because I just don't really understand why it would be. But at the same time, that is a good thing for the show. It's a good thing to have that many viewers, watching the show. So I think that what happened probably was it got a little bit of ground, online. People started seeing that it was out after a couple episodes, started talking about it, and that's probably why it's been climbing ever since. So really, really interesting to see that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you gotta come out with a couple of episodes, get the viewers into it, let them see kind of what's up with the show, and then I guess word of mouth gets around, and people start watching it. So interesting to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where the landscape has changed so much from how shows used to be successful. Now it's that, like you said, word of mouth. It's the online presence that pushes these shows, and I definitely think that has definitely helped a show like this. I've talked about this before on a podcast that I do, the 22 Shots, and a TV show like Masters of Horror, I think, would have greatly benefited from the type of audiences we have now, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the social medias, the way they are now. I think that show would have blown the fuck up had it came out, maybe a decade later than it actually did. And it's sad because that's one of my favorite shows, and I love the concept behind it. And I wish that it would get like sort of a reboot, or a reimagine. Not even a reimagining. I guess a reboot is the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
Just do it again.
I definitely agree. I mean, it's kind of, if it would have came out a little bit later, things would have been a little bit different. There's a lot of certain TV shows, even the X-Files, like certain seasons of that show. I feel like if they would have came out later on in the series, those specific episodes, they may have been a little bit better. But I mean, it is what it is. You got to kind of take it the way it is. But we'll go ahead and jump into the episode, so we don't keep you guys waiting. Like we said, this is episode 4. It's called Brujo. The episode kind of starts out kind of exactly where the last episode left off. It's like literally you could splice these episodes together pretty much where they leave off, and they're going to pick up right where they leave off. Starts out with the cop, the woman cop that, what was her name again? I always forget her. I don't know why I always forget her name. Amanda. Yeah, Amanda. Starts out with Amanda. She's handcuffed to the shelf inside the bookstore. So if you got to remember from the last episode, the Ash handcuffed her because, she tried to handcuff Ash, and then he handcuffed her to the bookshelf. After Ash had left, right before the episode stopped, you kind of see something rustling in the background, and the bookstore owner that Ash was talking to became a deadite. He kind of just woke up, and then the episode cut off. So it kind of left you that cliffhanger. It picks up exactly where that left off. The cop is handcuffed to the shelf, and the deadite comes over and starts choking her. Basically just holding her up, choking her, kind of, talking to her in, their evil language. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Ruby, which is the Xena warrior princess, Lucy Lawless's character. She's kind of still a mysterious figure in the show. We don't really know exactly what her intentions are. She comes in out of nowhere. I think she's still after Ash, looking for Ash. Comes in and kills the deadite. Basically impales him and cuts off his head to protect Amanda. So at this point, they kind of are talking for a moment. She's like, yeah, I'm going to become your best friend. And then it kind of cuts off and goes to Ash, where Ash is at, what they're doing. So it's Ash, and you got there
Kelly.
Was
one thing that happened there, and Ruby lets us know that she is looking for Ash because something that he was responsible with 30 years earlier.
Yes.
Which is a huge important detail, right?
Yeah,
because she basically says that she's trying to avenge her parents' and sister's death, which is the plot line for Evil Dead 2, the film. So it
That
does
is true.
directly connect it to the original series. And I was wondering who the hell Ruby was, and now that I finally know, that's pretty interesting. I loved that they connected it to the original film in that way. That was really, really neat that they did that.
Yeah, and something else we'll see later on in this episode as well is they show a lot of clips from the first Evil Dead as well. Like, which is, I love when they show clips from the original movies.
Yeah.
I think that's so neat that they actually, like you said, they put these specific clips and specific timelines into the episode, which is really, really cool. But we'll get into that. So yeah, you kind of know somewhat of who Ruby is now and what her kind of goal is. And then at this point, it shows Ash, Pablo, and Kelly in the car driving down the road. Kelly starts to feel sick and throws up outside of the car, mainly because of kind of what she experienced in the previous episode. And all of a sudden, as they're driving, after they start driving again, the locks in Ash's car just lock. And the car starts going out of control, kind of being controlled by somebody else.
Which is kind of a callback to the original Evil Dead.
It is. Yeah, it is. Because, I mean, as you guys know, if you've seen the original movie, pretty much the same thing happens in the original, the first movie. There's a lot of similarities like that, little things that you pick up that you see from the original 3 movies. But the car loses control. He looks over at Pablo, tells Pablo to hit the nitrous. There's some nitrous in his car, which is kind of funny that he has nitrous in this freaking car.
Yeah.
I was like, what
this
the
Oldsmobile.
Yeah, it's like this old ass, like it's the car from the original movie. And the car, of course, it starts to go and then it stops. It's like it just slows to a stop. And so they eventually get the car going again, and they end up going to Pablo's uncle's house, who is a shaman. As they're pulling into the uncle's house, they're still trying to outrun this kind of like big cloud that's behind them. It's like a cloud of the dead, basically, is what I would call it. It's just a cloud that, and Kelly asked Ash what it was, and he said it's just pure evil, basically.
Yeah, it's the evil. The Evil Dead is like the Deadites. This is just the evil part of it before it really creates the Deadites. It's the Sam Raimi camera on the 2x4s going through the woods. That's what we're looking at here.
Exactly, yeah, and it's following them. Once they get to Pablo's uncle's house, it goes
Which,
away.
by the way, Jesus Christ, this guy lives in the like spookiest damn place ever. It's totally like voodoo-y, like shit hanging everywhere. Like
it's super, super creepy. Like, there's like skulls hanging around the place, and it just looks really weird.
Bones and shit.
And it won't go onto his property. The evil won't go onto his property because he has all these like kind of orbs and like things set up to kind of prevent against evil things, evil spirits. So they're at his uncle's house, Pablo's uncle's house, and they're kind of talking, and they're meeting. Ash is meeting his uncle for the first time, and Pablo is telling him, this is a jefe, which he called him a jefe because he's a person. Ash is a person who fights evil. He fights evil spirits. He's one of the
which actually was the title of the first episode. So
what
that means now.
So we kind of know what that means now. And, his uncle's kind of skeptical about it. Ash is kind of making hilariously smart-ass remarks. One of the things that I notated this, that was really funny in this scene is where Pablo was talking about how he worked in the store that him and Ash worked in. And he wasn't very happy with it. He was kind of ashamed. And
This is great.
Yeah. Ash looks over at him. He's like, "You were in the electronics department. That was the big time, bud."
Yeah, but he's totally serious. He's like, "Wait a minute. You were in the electronics department. That's the big time, man. Don't be ashamed of that."
I just thought that was, I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny.
It's like you had it made, man.
Yeah, and like he's like, and kind of like Pablo looks at him like, okay, like that's odd. That's something odd to say.
Are you starting to really like Pablo? Because I am, man. We might have mentioned that in the last episode, but like I really dig Pablo.
Yeah, I like his character a lot. I think at first I was kind of skeptical that he was just too goofy, but now I think he's funny. I mean, I actually enjoy his comedic aspect to the show because he's one of those people that like he looks over at Ash and kind of like it just looks at him like he's stupid as hell. Like he doesn't know what Ash is thinking at the time, and when Ash says stuff, he's just kind of like, really? Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, they're at his uncle's house. They're talking. The uncle's talking to Ash. They kind of get to know each other. And the uncle tells Pablo to go help Kelly out because she's still feeling sick. obviously he introduced Ash as like a Hefe who battles darkness.
Yeah, and the uncle can kind of see, like, I see a little, what do you say, a flicker in you, but
Yeah.
you're too unaware to even be a Hefe or whatever, you know? So he basically sees potential in him, but he's too much of an idiot, is what he's saying.
Too much of an idiot, exactly. And then pretty much after this, you see Kelly's character, and she's not feeling good still, and she starts hearing weird noises coming from the Brujo's farm, the uncle's farm. She starts hearing noises, she's looking around, not really knowing what's going on. You can tell at this point something's going on with Kelly.
Yeah, you pretty much know that whatever, remember last episode we mentioned, like, oh, well, I don't know how the hell that really did anything when she hit that thing with the book or whatever.
Yeah.
That for good reason why we didn't know why the hell it didn't.
Yeah,
you know?
find out in this episode what exactly happened.
Yeah, so Kelly's having a little bit of issues with what happened previously. It seems like our old friend at the bookstore might not be gone altogether.
Exactly. So we'll meet him up here pretty soon. At this point, the Brujo, the shaman, takes Ash into his house and starts giving him alcohol. What you think is alcohol? It's more like acid.
Yeah, it's ayahuasca. Ayahuasca. Ash pretty much knows what it is. It's a hallucinogenic, which actually is a real thing, I believe. Like certain tribes and cultures use it for both religious and spiritual type of hallucinations. And the idea is that Ash will connect with his spiritual side and be a little bit more aware, and it's going to benefit him. So we actually start seeing flashback scenes. You mentioned them earlier of Evil Dead 2. There's Playboy covers and Charlie's Angels and different TV show openings. We're totally getting like a flashback of the last 30 years of Ash's life.
Yeah. I was going to say a lot of it was really cool to see some of those old, because I mean you could tell how old the film is when they show those old scenes, and it's just like it's really kind of nostalgic to see that as because he's tripping balls basically. He's sitting there high as hell and he's just remembering everything, and the shaman's trying to get him to go to like a good place, wants him to kind of clear his mind and become kind of like a sentient being almost. So it's just really interesting to see this at this point. It kind of flashes back to scenes with Pablo and everything here, and then it goes back to Ash and kind of wish-washy there. But at this point, he is tripping basically for pretty much the rest of the episode. He's tripping balls, but. Pablo has this idea at this point, once it kind of cuts back to his character, that he wants to build Ash a new hand.
Yeah, which I'm glad you bring that up, because I was thinking this before, and I was unsure if we've talked about this, or if I've just thought it, or we lost it in that failed recording last week. But this actual story, this Ash vs. the Evil Dead, isn't canon with Army of Darkness. And there's a good reason for that. And the reason is the Army of Darkness is owned by different rights holders. So remember in the first episode we said, oh, I wonder why they didn't use S-Smart, Shop Smart, Shop S-Smart, Yeah. Well, that's the reason, because that's an Army of Darkness property, that's an Army of Darkness line. So they can't use it. So they had to change some things, including what I believe is Ash's robotic hand that he made back in Army of Darkness. So that's why he doesn't still have that.
That's interesting. I didn't really think about that.
And I didn't know that once I read. I was reading something a while back, and I always known that the rights were different. That's why we never seen any box set or anything like that. So I always known that. But Jason Lloyd, who's hosting our podcast from Horrorphile, he actually listened to our episode and pointed it out. He listened to our first debut episode that at the time of recording this just published. So he kind of pointed that out to me, and I was like, yeah, I forgot to mention that. And so yeah, that's the reason.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad he noticed that. I mean, I had no. I mean, I knew that the Army of Darkness was owned by another company, but I didn't really think about that. I guess as we're going through these, so that's cool to know.
Yeah.
That's
so essentially, I think they are ignoring anything that happened in Army of Darkness.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I would assume they can't really mention much of it because of that rights holding. Little bit, but that's very cool. That's very interesting. So there's a little tidbit for you guys. Kind of get back into the episode. It's like we were saying earlier, Ash is tripping still. it shows a scene where Ash is trying to kind of look inside of himself, while the shaman's trying to get him to look inside of himself while he's tripping, and the shaman's telling him to look what's inside of himself and be happy with himself. And Ash is like, it's easy for you to say to look inside yourself, and I'm sitting here, and it shows a scene where he's like blind. He's actually like his eyes are like sewn shut, and he's like just kind of talking shit to the shaman as he's like sitting there tripping balls. It's a super funny scene.
Yeah. There's actually a few other scenes in there too, like where the shaman asks him to go to a safe place, and he goes to Jacksonville, Florida, and he's like, "Why did you pick Jacksonville? Were you born here or something?" He's like, "No, I've actually never been here." But 30 years ago, I was going to go to Jacksonville, and I, booked a trip there, and I decided to take a girl to a cabin instead.
Yeah, that's I
awesome.
notated that
that's
too, put LOL next to it, because it's like you kind of find out like how Ash ended up at the cabin. Like he was trying to impress a girl, ended up there, and he's got screwed basically. Yeah. He should have went to Jacksonville.
Yeah, and then he notices that his hand is back. His hand is back on his hand, and he's like, "Oh, this is awesome! I haven't had a hand in 30 years or whatever."
Oh yeah, it's pretty. There's another scene coming up there that's extremely hilarious. I was actually laughing at this scene coming up, but it kind of cuts out at that point. It shows Kelly's character starting to turn into a deadite. So she's in the cabin with Pablo. Pablo is actually making this hand for Ash, and she purposely electrocutes him, kind of like throws him off, kind of throws him back, and then it kind of cuts to her character, and it shows her eyes are changing, and then she looks into the mirror, and you see that demon from the last episode, the one that looked like the one from Hellraiser I was talking about. You see him looking back at her from the mirror. So kind of a creepy scene where you kind of get that it looks like that guy when she hit him with the book, he actually got thrown into Kelly. Instead of being thrown back into the book. So
interesting that nobody questioned what happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of questioned it last episode.
We did, but the characters didn't.
Yeah, they didn't really think anything about it, I'm really surprised Ash didn't think anything about that. I guess he's just dumb, but yeah, and then it kind of cuts back to Ash's character. He's sitting in like a lawn chair on like a pier talking to his pet lizard. It just kind of gets funnier and funnier. I actually laughed at that part. I was like, this is too damn funny. The lizard has a mouth and everything, and he's like sitting there. He's like, he's like, I always wished I could have talked to you. He goes, let me ask you a question. Are you a male or a female? And the lizard just kind of looks at him like, what the fuck? It was pretty funny, but that was probably the funniest scene I think in the whole episode. But and then
also, you did mention that Pablo was building a hand, and he ends up getting like electrocuted while doing that.
Yep.
Pretty cool hand, by the way.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like the hand from Terminator, like when it showed like
a little bit
Schwarzenegger's hand whenever his skin came off. I thought it looked just like that. It was pretty cool, but he's pretty stoked on it, and I don't know. I haven't seen anything past this episode yet, but I'm sure Ash will be stoked to see it. But it's really cool. It's like a mechanical kind of like robot hand, so should be pretty neat if he actually gets to use it. Ash is starting to seriously trip balls. He ends up seeing a vision of he's holding the Book of the Dead. He ends up throwing the Book of the Dead in the water and like the water that's around him, and just kind of talking to this lizard. And then he sees the demon that Kelly's turning into in a vision. And he sort of ends up being in the back of the store that he used to work in. He drops, I guess he just dropped from the vision he was in. He went to another vision, and he ends up in the back of, what are they calling it? It's not S-Mart. What are they calling it in this?
Value Stop.
Value Stop. He ends up in the back of Value Stop where he was working, and he kind of sees some of the characters that we saw from the first episode, like the doll that was talking, and things of that nature. And they're kind of like just talking shit to him, and he's kind of talking shit back, and they're like, telling him that the demons are gonna get him, basically. And he sees that demon from the last episode, the one that's possessed by Kelly now, and he starts choking it. He like kind of grabs it and starts choking it, and it kind of cuts out, and you see that he's actually choking Kelly because he's actually where he was before. He's at
what's happening. It's almost like the Elm Street thing, right? Freddy's Nightmares. Like when you're in your dream world, you're doing one thing, but what's happening in reality is your body is doing another thing.
Exactly. So he starts choking her, and then all of a sudden Pablo just comes out of nowhere, hits him over the head with a like a wooden. It looks like one of those things you would crush pills up with or something. Wooden kind of small bat. He kind of hits Ash over the head with it, and it knocks Ash out, so he'll drop Kelly. He dropped Kelly, and they kind of just stare down at Ash, and the shaman's there. He's looking at him, and he's like, well, they're all staring. And then it kind of cuts to Kelly's character, and this is where the episode ends, and it shows her with the demon eye. So we know at this point that the demon is still inside Kelly, that she was just basically bullshitting that she was Kelly in order for Ash.
Now, Kyle, let me ask you this. Are you jealous that the demon's inside Kelly?
I am so jealous of that demon. I want to be inside Kelly so bad.
Distasteful jokes.
Yeah.
One thing you forgot to mention, because you're a dumbass, is there's actually another very important scene that happened, and it's when we cut back to Ruby, and she actually has... What does she have, Kyle?
She has your balls in her hand.
No, she has Ash's hand.
That's right. She did have Ash's hand. I forgot. I don't know why I didn't write that down. Yeah, she had Ash's hand in the trunk, and it was actually moving. Apparently, she's had Ash's hand
for like 30 years.
And yeah, for 30 years, and she said it hasn't moved in 30 years, and it just started. The fingers started moving, and this was a scene. I'm glad you remembered this scene because I don't know how I've missed this. This is a scene
you're a dumbass.
I try my best. I talk so much, I skip over things, but I can't be a dumbass. But the cop Amanda is standing there, and she's just kind of looking at this hand. Dude, if I saw a woman, I don't know about you, but if I saw a woman pull a hand out of a trunk, I think I'd be a little bit more scared or like put off than she.
True, but she has already seen some shit over the past couple days.
I guess, yeah.
From the bookstore owner to her partner to them summoning that weird ass demon. I mean, maybe the hand wouldn't be as big of a deal after all that.
Yeah, maybe they just like maybe she's just like at this point she's like fuck it, I just don't care at this point. But
yeah, but so one thing that it tells us is that obviously Ash's hand was possessed in Evil Dead 2. He cuts it off with the chainsaw, I believe, and apparently she ended up finding it, but because the evil had subsided and was no longer around, it was not really possessed, but it probably still had some inkling of possession to it. That's why it probably stayed like unrotted or whatever. And now the evil is back reawakened. The hand is starting to be getting power back again. That's how I'm going to explain it anyway. So, I think it's pretty cool. I think this is going to be a way for them to get Ash's hand back, which I think is just convenience for both production and just the actor. It got to be annoying to have to like tape his hand off and like hide his hand every time they, are shooting and stuff. So that I would probably assume that Ash will eventually get his hand back.
Yeah, I would assume that he would too, because it seems like I'm sure Bruce Campbell as an actor as well doesn't want to have to walk around with like faking that he doesn't have a hand the whole series.
It would suck, right?
Yeah, I think they're probably trying to incorporate that back in so he doesn't have to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like maybe it's a reason, but
it would be really funny if he got his hand back and then immediately his other hand got chopped off.
Oh my, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be so funny, dude.
So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the episode, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, what are your thoughts on it, man?
Well, one of the things that I am sort of having a bit of an issue with, and we'll bring it up again. I mean, I'm gonna bring it up again, like right now. We've already talked about this, but I think the reason that you forgot that scene happened is because we spend so little time with those characters, because it's such a short episode that we literally spend like all the time with Ash, and then because we have to, and then we have to somehow squeeze in like these other moments with these other characters who are off doing other things. So really it does come down to it again, like the show is probably too short. I think it works because it works for the reason of being quick, witty, funny, just fast paced, but I think it also leaves a little left to be desired when you're talking about story movement and development.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, there's like little to no like screen time for those characters whatsoever. I mean, it showed Amanda and her probably a total of like 3 to 4 minutes that whole episode, if even. I mean, they were so small that the scenes were like very small of what you saw of them. But hopefully in the future episodes, maybe they're just kind of introducing their characters. Maybe in future episodes they'll be shown a lot more. So who knows at this point? I mean, it's still kind of a new series, so I guess we'll see.
All right. So what is your tier? As always, we do low tier, mid tier, and high tier or top tier for the level of episode that it is. Now, I will say that mid tier does not mean that it's bad. High tier means that it's great, but it doesn't mean that it's the best. And low tier doesn't mean that it's the worst. It just means that it's in the lower percent of quality.
I would give this a mid tier, mainly because I wouldn't give it a high tier. I would give this a mid tier just because of the references to the previous movies and the fact that you sort of find out who Ruby may be or is, and you do see Ash's hand, in the episode and you kind of get that backstory on the hand of who's had it. So I would give this a mid tier. I mean, it wasn't an amazing episode as far as enjoyable. I didn't think it was amazing, but at the same time, I thoroughly did enjoy it, and I thought it was a good episode. I mean, it wasn't something to complain about. So,
yeah, I'm 100% with you, man. I also give it a mid tier, simply because it did not blow me away. It's not an episode that blew me away. Like when you first see the pilot, that's an episode that blows you away because you're just like so enthralled in it being new. And this, we're kind of used to it at this point, so it's just like, yeah, more of the same, nothing super cool. There was definitely some, really cool scenes, but nothing that's going to blow me away super cool like that. But, mid-tier for sure. That's still pretty damn good.
Yeah, man. I agree totally with you as well. I mean, I thought it was it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I thought it was an enjoyable episode. It wasn't anything mind-boggling or anything that I was like, whoa, kind of deal. But it definitely gave you some background and some stuff, and I thought that was a good thing. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, so that will wrap up the Ash vs. Evil Dead podcast covering episode 4. Which was Brujo. Yeah, so as always, guys, you can check us out on all of the links in the description. You can come back for episode 5, which will be next week. And that's Kyle. I'm JP. And until next time, we will see you later.